Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden. We're going to head up towards Stockholm once again, the capital city, and we're going to revisit a brewery who I haven't reviewed anything from in a couple of months actually. It must be around 6 months or so since I last reviewed a beer from these guys. So for this one then we are going to go to Stockholm Brewing once again, who are mainly doing sour beers these days. But for this one we're going to have a little look at the Italo Pils today, which as the name suggests is an Italian style Pilsner. It comes in at 5.2% ABV, and this beer was released in May 2020. I forget the exact date, as part of one of the Tillfälligt assortiments. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. The main reason that I'm interested in this beer is because recently, of course, I had the Tipo Pils from Birrificio Italiano, and I do wonder if that was the main inspiration behind this beer. I've always felt that even the Italian macro beers, you know, like the Moretti's, the Peronis and things like that, I've always quite liked those, to be honest with you. I've always enjoyed the Italian lager beers, and it's something that I would really love to explore a little bit more. I got asked a really good question on the live stream the other day as well, which was what defines an Italian Pilsner, and to be quite honest, I actually don't really know what makes it different. I just know that I really quite enjoy them. So if some of you are watching from Italy, do let me know some other Italian lager and Pilsner style beers that you guys would recommend that I review, and hopefully I can review some more of those for you at some point too. Now, I do wish I could review more Italian beer for you on the channel, because I know there's some great stuff down there. It is that just age-old kind of problem of being able to get a hold of it. So yeah, I would love to review some more Italian beers. But this one, I think, I do wonder if it was inspired by the Tipo Pils, because it came fairly, not that long after Tipo Pils started to establish a presence here in Scandinavia. So I do wonder if that's one of the reasons why Stockholm Brewing produced this one actually. So yeah, hopefully this turns out to be a very nice beer. I've had good beers from Stockholm Brewing Company in the past, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Stockholm Brewing Company before. No doubt there will be some more at some point in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Stockholm Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Stockholm Brewing, as the name suggests, are based in Stockholm, the capital city of Sweden, and they were founded back in 2012 by Niklas Jakobsson, Thomas Hallgren and Niklas Lenkel. So they were joined in 2016 by Mimi Pettersson, who joined the company to increase their sales, and she has a background in the restaurant industry. And then later they were joined in 2018 by Emil Törström, who runs the restaurant part of the company. And they were apparently also the first craft brewery in Sweden to open up a tasting bar at their brewery as well. By 2016, though, they were producing around 150,000 litres of beer, and the brewery was originally based in Söder in Stockholm, but more recently in 2018 they moved to a new place in an old brick house at Frihamnen, the Free Harbour basically, out to the east of the city, and they also have a restaurant out there as well. But they also have their own small farm outside of Stockholm, which is called the Karshamra Trädgård, and a chunk of the things that they use in the restaurant actually come from there as well. The farm is run by Agnes and Maurits, and they are also involved with the restaurant part of the company as well. But the current brewer that they have is Michael Alin Vigart, and he's assisted by Albin and Max, and I think they've had the same brew team in place for quite a wee while now actually. But they're also affiliated with the company Wine Trade, which is run by Ollie Bartlett, who I believe is English, and he's also involved with the brewery as well. But as of May 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 150 different kinds of beer. And as I say, it's mainly sour beers you get from these guys, but I have had a few other things as well. I think, I'm trying to remember exactly what I've had from these guys, but this one, is, as far as I can remember, is definitely the first lager beer that I've had from them. They don't really do New England IPAs and West Coast IPAs and stuff like this. It is mainly, you know, sort of sour beers like Berliner Weisses and all of this kind of thing. I'm sure they've done a few Belgian style beers at different points as well. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Stockholm Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram. You can check out the brewery website as well, of course, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this one then. So I'll just like to have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. There was someone said on the kind of unbagging that I did the other day that this looked like a 1980s oil can or something like that. So I think it is actually pretty cool. The artwork on this one I think is really quite retro, I have to say. It reminds me of, obviously, different colour scheme, but it reminds me of some of the old Adidas shirts. What was the Italian sports company called? Was it Lotta? I remember I had a Lotta football that my uncle gave me when I was younger. Lotta Italian sports design or something like that. But yeah, this one, as I say, it comes in at 5.2% ABV. On the back here it says Italo Pils, deliciously dry hopped Italian style Pilsner, is equally good on its own and will pair nicely with your favourite choice of pizza, bolognese or tortelloni. So yeah, this one I think should be really quite nice actually. As I say, people have told me this is a nice lager beer. If you've watched the channel before, you will know that I really enjoy my Pilsners and my lagers and things like this as well. So I'm really curious to see what this one has in store for us. So yeah, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting. As I said, this one was released sometime in May of 2020 as part of the Tillfällig assortment in Systembolaget, and I think it only cost me about 25 Swedish crowns or something. So that's, what is that? That's about £2, about €2.50, something like that. So yeah, and that'll be, yeah, roughly $2. I mean, $2 American dollars 50. Probably 3 Aussie dollars, 3 Canadian dollars, something like that. A little bit more maybe. So yeah. Okay. So yeah, as you can see with this one, it's poured kind of as you would expect for a Helles lager, Pilsner beer, whatever you're going to say. It is a Pilsner, this one, we can't really call it a Helles, but I'm not exactly clear on what the precise difference between those is. You know, the Helles, we've got lots of different types of lager beers, of course. In Germany, you have the Pilsner is technically a lager. You've got the Helles, the Helles Blonde, which is the kind of golden lager. You've got the Dunkel, which is the dark lager. You've got the Schwarzbier, which is the black lager. You also have the Doppelbock in there. In the Czech Republic, you have the Svetli, which I believe is the very blonde one. You've got the Letzak, which is the amber lager. You also have the Cherny, which is the equivalent of the Dunkel, the brown one. And you've also got the Tmavi, which is basically the same as a Schwarzbier. And of course, you have the Vienna lagers as well, which are the equivalent of the Czech Letzaks, if I have it the right way around, more of an amber lager actually. So this one, in terms of its appearance, definitely looks more like a kind of a Helles type lager. This one a light lager. Helles, of course, means basically light. Dunkel means dark, and Schwarz means black, of course. I'm not sure about the exact translations of the Czech because I've never tried to learn to speak Czech. Of course, the only word I really know, Dobry Dan, ahoy, and Nastravi, the most important words, I guess, or Dziękuję, thank you as well, if I remember that rightly. But yeah, nice blonde looking colour, this one, pale golden straw. There is a little bit of haze to this, but could this be the condensation on the glass? No, it is actually the haze from the beer itself. You could see there was about a half finger of a frothy white head on this one before we started chatting about lagers. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but overall it does look pretty nice, and you know, pretty much what you would expect from a lager beer, this one, I have to say. So yeah, nothing overly surprising about the appearance of this one. Let's take a closer look at the aroma and see how we get on. Ooh, that actually smells, it actually smells a little bit farmhousey. That's unusual. That's not what you expect from a lager beer, I have to say. It's got that kind of sort of earthy, vegetally, herbally type thing, woody almost as well. It's got a real kind of farmhousey type quality to it, this one. And I have to admit, in a lager, when it comes to a lager beer, that is a little bit off-putting. So yeah, I've had a few beers that have smelt like this before, but then they've turned out really nice in the flavour, so don't pin everything on the aroma, I would say. This one, the aroma of this, I'm not going to lie, I don't like the aroma of this one. The more and more I smell of it, the more sort of vegetally it becomes. And that's to do this yeast. It's definitely the yeast that's doing that. It really, you can smell a little bit of a pale malty quality to this one. There's a wee bit of biscuit comes out of it, but really it's the yeasty qualities. It really has this big kind of vegetally, herbally, and kind of earthy, woody note to it. It's really unusual that actually. You don't normally expect that unless you're having like it smells almost like it's been brewed with like a kvike yeast or something like that. It really does actually smell like that. Some of these aromas that are coming out of this are what you would expect from a kvike or a farmhouse saison or something like that. This is not the aroma you would expect from a lager beer, I have to say. So I don't know if they're using like a house yeast or something like that. But the aroma of this one, I have to say, I don't like the malty and yeasty part of the aroma here. So be aware of that when you try it. Well, obviously we're going to try the beer and see how it turns out. But I have to say, I'm not that... the aroma's not overly bad, don't get me wrong on that, but it's not what I would expect in a lager beer, especially like a Pilsner. Wouldn't expect it. The more and more I smell of it, you do get a little bit more of a kind of biscuity McVitie's digestive type sweetness to it. But yeah, you've got a nice little bit of a hoppy quality in there. You do get a little bit of a kind of nice earthiness out there. It's quite a bright earthiness in there. You get some nice kind of floral aromaticity to it as well. A little bit of lighter grassiness and some of those kind of fruity esters coming out of the beer as well. It's got a little bit of that kind of lemony citricy thing that you expect of sort of noble hops. The Italians of course do have their own hops. I need to research a little bit more and learn more about the Italian hop varieties and things, because I'm pretty sure that Birrificio Italiano were using their own hop varieties, and I'm sure that Balladine actually, Birra Balladine, I think they actually grow a number of their own hops as well. There is one of the other big boys down in Italy. I say big boys, one of the bigger craft guys are really doing a number of different hops and things like that. So yeah, I need to research Italian hops a little bit more. But yeah, you do get a nice little bit of bright grassiness out of it. It's got some nice kind of floral aromaticity, as I say, and you've got a little bit of that citricy, lemony, grassy sort of thing. There's a wee bit of an apple perry ester coming out of this one, so the hoppy side of the beer is what it should be. It's just the yeasty and malty side of it that's a little bit unusual, in my opinion. So yeah, take a little bit of time and get used to that aroma for yourself. I think it's a little bit unusual, but you do get some beers that are like this where the aroma can be a bit strange, but then the beer itself actually tastes awesome. So yeah, I'm hoping that this is one of those beers. So yeah, take a bit of time and enjoy that aroma for yourself, but we are going to get stuck into this one now. This one is the Italo Pils 5.2% lager beer from Stockholm Brewing Company from the capital city here in Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one. Slanja, skål. Yeah, it's this beer. This is one of these things. There's so much of this beer is really well done. The mouth feels great. The hoppiness is great, and the flavours from the hops are good. I think it's just got the wrong yeast strain in it. I think that this beer just really has the wrong yeast strain in it. A Pils beer, I think, and this is the first time I've said this about any of the Stockholm Brewing beers, I really just think they've used the wrong yeast in this. And obviously it's these farmhouse yeasts, if you're going to sort of use it as a kind of complementary flavour, you do need a fairly big malt base and quite a flavourful malt base to kind of match that. And I think maybe the Pilsner beers are not the most malty of beers. So you do get quite a bit of the yeastiness coming out in this one, and it's just not what you would expect from an Italian style Pilsner, I have to say. It's almost more like a kind of farmhouse lager, this one, which is kind of unusual. Some people I think might really like that. Some people like the more kind of doughy yeasty things, and I like it in the styles that it's supposed to be there. Like some of the New England IPAs, like the ones from Alchemist. I like it in saisons and wit beers to an extent as well. Sometimes in the Hefeweizens, although you wouldn't really get that. The Hefeweizen is not a farmhouse type beer, right enough. But yeah, it's a bit odd that you have these flavours in the lager. But yeah, I would say if I am calling this right, because the other thing that I'm thinking of, it could be some of the organic malt that they're using, because this beer, if you look at the back of it, it is certified organic. And I remember having this thing in Germany with there was one of the local breweries in Heidelberg who brewed all their beers organic, and it gave you this really kind of chalky mouthfeel. I don't know if it was one of the ways that they treated the malt or something like that, because I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be the hops, I would think. So yeah, there is just a sort of herbally woody kind of thing going on in this beer that's a little bit unusual. I think they need to look at I think they've got quite a lot of it right. I think the hoppy side of this beer is really good, and I think the mouthfeel is great. I would try a different yeast strain in this. That would be my first thought with this, is to try a different yeast strain. You know, use a yeast strain from, use a German yeast strain, or use an Italian yeast strain, something like that. Use an Italian lager yeast strain. Because this one, it really is kind of farmhousey, this, rather than anything. I would think this is an American, maybe a Vermont yeast strain, or at a push maybe it's a Norwegian Voss yeast strain that's coming in this. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly about that, but again, the other thing that it could be, I think, would be the organic malts, because they can give you this kind of almost chalky, herbally sort of thing, and that's, it's either of those two things. It's either the yeast or it's the malt that's used in this one. But yeah, they have got quite a lot of this beer right, I have to say. It's just a shame about the one element that's not quite there, in my opinion. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then, and just and see how we go. So straight away with this beer, you can feel a nice little bit of that kind of white malt, that kind of white bready thing, that blankets the middle of your palate. The further you go into the aftertaste, you can feel it gets a little bit crisper. This beer, in fairness, it does lean a little bit towards the Munich Helles style of things. It's not quite as crisp as some of the Pilsners that you are going to come across. And I do remember, in fairness, the Italian ones did have a little bit more of a malty character to it. And like I say, the malt, I really do suspect it's the yeast, because I think they've got the maltiness of this one pretty bang on. If you're in the middle of your palate, you can feel that pale malty base, and in the centre of your tongue you've got a little bit of that kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive kind of thing, and it is a little bit slightly more intense in the very centre of your palate. That is what you want from an Italian Pilsner. It's when you go to the back third of your tongue, you start to get these yeasty elements out of the beer, and you've got that kind of woody, herbally, vegetally kind of thing to it, and that, to me, does not belong in a Pilsner. It doesn't belong in a lager, that. And that, it does linger into the aftertaste. It's not like it's just something that's kind of minimally in the background. I remember Nordic Kiwi brewers actually had a lager beer that they brewed that was kind of similar to this, and it used, I think they were using some kind of Vermont yeast, because it's the same type of flavour. You get that herbally woody thing. That is just, for me, I've repeated it quite a few times, that just does not belong in a Pilsner for me. A Pilsner should be kind of clean and crisp, and I think the yeast that they're using in here gives it a bit of a thicker mouthfeel. And even the Italian Pilsners, they're a bit more thicker in the malt base, but they are still crisp at the same time. At least Tipo Pils and things we're going by. But yeah, I would say I think the malt base on this is well done. I think the hoppy side of the beer is well done, and the mouthfeel is good. They just need, I've said a few things, they need to just change the yeast strain, I think. So yeah, let's look at the hoppy side of this beer then. In the back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward along the side of the palate, it does get a little bit herbal. Then as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of a kind of floral aromaticity to this one. It's not even quite spicy, it's just quite bright actually. I like the brightness of the floral character in here. But then as you go round the front curve of the palate, you get a little bit of that lighter kind of grassy sort of thing coming out of the beer. Then behind the front curve of the palate, on the front third of the tongue, that's where you get the nice oily bubble, where the juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. And for me, this one's got some really nice flavours to it. So yeah, on the hoppy kind of fruity side of things, you do get a little bit of that kind of citrusy, that kind of grassy, citricy, lemony sort of thing that you get. You get a good bit of a peary ester in there. You also get a wee bit of an appley sort of thing. There's maybe even a little teeny hint of an almost gooseberry type flavour out of this one. And the fruitiness does actually become a little bit more oily the further you go into the aftertaste as well. But I really like how this one all pieces itself together, and I think they have done a really nice job of this. So it does get you know, I think they've done a nice job. I should say I think they've done a nice job of it. It gets like a 90% thumb up from me. Change the yeast strain, and I think they're on to a winner here. You know, I think there's just that one wee element I think that lets this beer down a little bit, and I'm pretty sure it's either the yeast or it's the organic malt that's giving it some of that. So I would look at that again. One of the best lager beers that I remember I've had in recent times was actually the Skånsk Lager from Hylia Brewery down here in Skåne in the south. That's a beautiful, beautiful Pilsner beer, and they just, pardon me, they just got it absolutely spot on. And I think, you know, if you're going to use introduce an Italian style Pilsner, don't use. I would say I would either drop the organic malt, and I suppose that's a controversial thing for them because that's one of their big company mantras, or I would change the yeast strain in it, because it does. As I say, this is something that I reckon it's the yeast, because I know that NKB, they don't use, or Northern Exposure as they're now known, they don't use. I'm pretty sure they don't use organic malt. But I think this is to do this. I'm pretty sure this, 90% sure this is a yeast thing that's doing this. So yeah, that vegetally, herbally, woody kind of thing that sits at the back of the palate, that's, for me, that's just something that shouldn't be in a lager beer. But they've got 90% of it right, so it gets a sort of 90%. It's got a 90% kind of thumb up for me, this one. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say that this beer is... I'd say that this is fairly, it's, you know, it is quite light bodied. The carbonation is nice and smooth. This one does give you a degree of crispness, but it's a little bit oily at the same time. There is a wee bit of hoppy bitterness to this one. You have, I'd say, you know, you're talking about 25-ish IBUs in this one, 20 IBUs. It doesn't feel too bitter. The malt base, like I say, is very smooth. It's got a degree of sweetness. I think the malty middle part of your beer, the middle part of your palate is really nice on this one, and you've got a nice little touch of just fruitiness out of the beer as well. So like I say, it's about 80-90% right. Just change the yeast strain, and I think they are onto a winner with this one. So yeah. An interesting beer, this one. I do hope that the guys at Stockholm Brewing Company see this, because I think, as I say, change that one element, and I think you guys have you've got a really solid beer here. Just change the yeast, and I think you are really onto a winner with this. This could be a good core beer for you. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. An interesting beer to try. Say, not my favourite one I've had from Stockholm Brewing. I don't think I would say that at all. But yeah, I think there are quite a few positives to take out of this beer, and I think I would like to see them redo this with a different yeast strain, because I think this could turn out really nicely if they changed that yeast around. I think this is using some sort of ale yeast when it really should use a lager yeast. I've got a feeling there's something going on with that. The farmhousey elements just shouldn't be in this one for me. I think that's it. So it could be that their yeast strain they've used has maybe got contaminated or something with some of the other yeasts that they're using in the other beers. I don't know. Speculating now, but yeah, these guys are a very capable brewery. Their sour beers are really nice, and you will see me review one of their big. I've got a big bomber sour beer that you'll see me review maybe in a couple of weeks' time or something like that. We'll see when we can get that review published. But yeah, this one was the Italo Pils, coming in at 5.2% ABV from Stockholm Brewing Company up in Stockholm, the capital city here in Sweden. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers have been from Stockholm Brewing as well. We will return to these guys in the future, but until then, slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, make sure you check out Stockholm Brewing Company, and have a go at the Italo Pils and let me know what you think. Cheers.